All right. Well, there was just a question I wanted to ask you, Philip. Um, when I first started coming to you and I used to meditate, as you know, I used to have lots of jerkiness in my body. It's almost like having an electric shock. And I learned that that was just the rising energy of just literally energy, the rising levels. And now I just feel everything is free flowing within me, and there's no jerkiness. It is what it is, and but sometimes I can go off that, and sometimes I can still worry about various things, such as the children probably, and I just would like a little bit of guidance on that. But I feel that I've travelled a long way, and but I'm free flowing. I'm ready for whatever experiences. If all that makes sense, Philip.
So, hi Wendy, thank you for your question. So there were a number of different elements that came up there, and I particularly remember the very first event you came to. It was at the Sanctuary of Healing, and you were one of the many people that had a really dramatic experience and shift at your very first event. And in fact, I was just been reviewing some interview footage where I was talking about a number of experiences like that, and yours was one of them that stood out. And I remember your body was jerking and lots of things going on, but I also remember after you'd gone through all that and witnessing you through it, you felt a great shift had taken place and felt great afterwards. And I know that happened a few times actually at events for you. And that jerkiness and those physical phenomena are quite a common thing, actually, as one's opening to awareness of the self. And it's a reflection of a number of things, a sort of pent up energy in the emotional body, all the emotional baggage that we tend to carry around being released. And the jerkiness is also, it's almost like the body's being shaken loose, and stuff that you no longer serves you is being shaken loose. And it's also a reflection often of, whether it's conscious or unconscious, resistance that we have there. We're kind of like holding on to this idea of who we think we are. And the ego mind is fearing moving on from that. And whether that resistance is conscious or unconscious, it's all rooted in a belief in a case of mistaken identity. But there's been enough openness in the awareness for you to attend an event like that in the first place. And that is then a big invitation for that energy to arise, as you talked about in your question. And that is part of the process of the Kundalini energy arising, of which I've got a separate video you might want to explore. So it's quite a natural part of the process, and the fact that it's less jerky now and you feel more free flowing is a very good sign, because what that means is that there's less and less resistance in you and less tendency to go with the belief systems that you've bought into, and you're much more likely to allow the awareness and the energy to flow through you, and so it will feel more effortless or more free flowing, as you spoken about in the question. So that's why that transition took place, and I know that when you went through various phases of that, and there will be undoubtedly more to come. And I know you've attended some retreats recently where there were profound shifts in those for you, but perhaps in a different way to what you experienced before. And again, that's a reflection of the more free-flowing openness to this awareness that's been integrated over a number of years now in your case. When you talked about maybe still worrying occasionally about the children and so forth, all this worry energy, which is just a fear in another form, all of that is coming from the same place, which is the belief, in the case of mistaken identity, as the body mind. Obviously, one wants to care for one's children, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's quite natural and thing to happen. But worry actually doesn't serve you. It's much better to approach any situation in life, whether it's about the children, friends, or whatever, from a space of awareness. And then one can have compassion and a natural concern for the well-being of a person, but not going into the space of worry, chatter, making up things about the future which you don't really know has unfolded. So when that energy does arise, an energy of worry, you can see that as an invitation to dissolve something inside of you. And live stream 11, Transmuting Fear into Love, which I'm sure you've watched a few times already, that's the vehicle and that's the resource to go to remind you of that. And the more of this emotional body that you dissolve, the more free-flowing life will be, the deeper you will go into the realization and awareness, and the more settled and easier it is to hold that or embrace that, perhaps more accurately, as a true knowing of who you really are. So I hope those few little pointers have been of assistance to you. Thank you very much for sharing your question. Namaste.